So this is Transfer Talk. It's decision day for Victor Osimhen. He has been offered a mouth-watering deal by Al Ahly, but Chelsea are waiting in the wings. So where will the striker decide to move to? We'll be discussing that and other potential outgoings at Stamford Bridge as Raheem Sterling and Ben Chilwell's futures remain unclear. Elsewhere, Aaron Ramsdale's move to Southampton is edging closer. The latest on that deal coming up for you. Scott McTominay's on his way to Italy as a move to Napoli also moves in the right direction. Nottingham Forest have been trying to sign a striker all window. Will they get one over the line? We'll hear from Nuno Espirito Santo very shortly. Good afternoon to you at home. Great to have you with us. We've also got Dan Bardell, Sam Abataki and David Reed with us for Transfer Talk. OK, we're going to talk about Victor Osimhen. It feels like decision day for him, doesn't it? Is he going to end up at Chelsea or Al Ahly? £484,000 a week. I can't get more high-pitched than that, but that is a lot.
That's what Al Ahly have got on the table for Victor Osimhen. This has been ongoing for feels like forever now, but it's sort of been the saga of the window a little bit. Osimhen seemingly on his way out of Napoli because Antonio Conte wants to strengthen, and they're bringing in Romelu Lukaku. Chelsea are after a number 9. Al Ahly have got the finances to blow everybody in Europe out of the water. That's what they're trying to do. And £58.8 million was the offer that Al Ahly have got on the table, and he's ready to go. And I think from sources in Saudi that have been talking to my colleagues here at Sky Sports News, they were kind of confident of getting the deal done for that price. And as you say, astonishing amount of money for Victor Osimhen himself, £484,000 a week. Obviously, Chelsea can't get anywhere near that amount of money, and we've talked already about the wage structure that they're trying to implement at Stamford Bridge. So there's no way that Chelsea can get near that. So as much as it's decision day for Victor Osimhen, I feel like almost it's decision day for Napoli as well, because they're the ones at the end of the day that have to sanction the move. And if Chelsea can't get to the figure that they want, then it's almost irrelevant what Victor Osimhen wants. So, yeah, decision day for the player. Obviously, Chelsea is an opportunity to play in a top 5 European league, compete for trophies, compete for league titles, whereas Saudi Arabia, an emerging football nation, definitely a discrepancy in quality of the league compared to the Premier League, but an opportunity to make, you know, a life-changing amount of money.
What does he go for, Dan? Does he choose wages, which is eye-wateringly high, or the prospect of playing for Chelsea in the Premier League? And it's not like you're going to be short of a few bob there either.
No, but like Dave says, that, you know, it may be that Osimhen doesn't have a decision to make and that he's kind of pushed in that direction because of the transfer fee. I think it's not always about the player, it's about the people around the player as well. You know, agents and people that are part of that camp see that £484,000 a week, was it? That is an incredible amount of money. I mean, it's hard for anyone, however much you earn, to turn that down when you're offered it, because you're looking after generations of your family, essentially. I think this would be big for the Saudi League, wouldn't it? We've seen them take a lot of players in their 30s, household names, players who are legends of the game. But taking Osimhen, that's a player kind of coming up to their peak, someone that is wanted by a big team in the Premier League. So if Osimhen goes there, it's a big statement again from the Saudi League.
I think in this instance, I think it seems like it's down to Osimhen, especially because we've known that Saudi have been interested. We know that they pay large fees for their players. We know that they're looking for younger players and some of the best players in Europe to attain. But I think he still wants to stay in Europe. You know, we've seen so many interviews of him in the past talk about what he wants to achieve in the Premier League, how exciting he finds the league. He said after the African Cup of Nations that, you know, he knows what he's doing next. And I think at that point he thought that there was going to be more offers because, you know, he signed a release clause. He thought it was going to be attainable for some of the teams in Europe. But we've seen the wage structures change because of FFP and PSR. So his options have become limited. But seeing that money and knowing that, you know, he's still at an age where even if he was to do a 3 or 4 years in the Saudi League, he could still come back and have an impact within Europe and in the Premier League. But it depends on how he wants to do it. Football's fickle, though, isn't it? We've seen players, you know, go back on stuff that they've said previously when those kind of sums are offered in front of them. But we'll know in the next 24 hours, won't we?
If not him, Dave, who else could Chelsea be looking at
Yeah, we've been reporting this week that Chelsea are ready to move on Ivan Toney if they don't get an opportunity to sign Victor Osimhen. But even that isn't a guarantee, and actually Brentford are almost readying themselves that he might stay at the end of this window as well. So they're preparing for all eventualities on that front. And again, you know, another name that Chelsea have been talking about in this window for the last couple of months has been John Duran at Aston Villa. That can't be ruled out. Another move for him in the final 24 hours. So Chelsea do have options.
Yeah. OK, so we said to you that Scott McTominay is on his way to Italy, a move for Napoli, moving in the right direction. Well, check out this. These are the scenes in Naples. You can just see him there. He's absolutely mobbed. Scott McTominay just arrived now.
He's loving it.
Absolutely mobbed by fans at the airport. They are absolutely loving it. He's going to have a medical before signing his contract. What do you make of these scenes?
Amazing.
Great.
Amazing. I think if he ever doubted the move, this would just make him so much more excited about it. You know, they're really fans that like take to players that are coming in and become cult heroes instantly. So he's gonna love it though.
I haven't seen scenes like that since you returned to work, Bella.
Good from you, Dan. This deal is worth £21 million. That's the initial payment, and then there's £4.2 million in performance-related add-ons. But he's got to have a medical. These fans are hoping he's going to pass that. He'll pass his medical. But what do you make of this, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, the Napoli fans are obviously, we know in the history of the game, they are some of the most passionate football fans on the planet, and they will, you know, take all of the players that play for them like a member of their extended family. So absolutely amazing scenes for Scott McTominay there, and he'll be hoping to go out there and make an impact. Absolutely
love that. OK, now Liverpool have sprung into action with a day to go. We'll get the very latest and join Vinny O'Connor. He's at the club's training ground for us. Vinny, great to see you again. Tell us what's the latest with Federico Chiesa.
Yeah, Bella, it's edging ever closer because Federico Chiesa arrived here around about mid-morning, a little bit after the Liverpool medical staff had turned up as well, and that was to complete the next part of his medical. He flew into Liverpool John Lennon Airport yesterday ahead of that medical as well. They actually got a fair bit accomplished yesterday as well because he did a bit of the medical off-site, then was here until around about 1 o'clock in the morning. Michael Edwards was here, I'm told, as was sporting director Richard Hughes as well. That was after a deal had been struck with Juventus, which totals £12.5 million. The breakdown of that deal is £10 million up front with £2.5 million in add-ons. We're told they're performance related in terms of what Liverpool and what success Liverpool can have on the pitch. So in terms of winning a Premier League title or a Champions League title, for instance, as well. So as I mentioned, a lot of the medical was done yesterday. The rest of the players, the first team squad here at Liverpool, have got a day off today, actually, ahead of that big clash with Manchester United at the weekend. So relatively quiet around us, but it's progressing, I think, and it's a case. And I don't think necessarily an announcement is imminent at the moment, but we're certainly expecting no hitches ahead of that, or before that deadline, I should say, and this deal to get over the line before then as well.
And Vinny, just outline for us some of the reasons why Liverpool have decided to move now for Chiesa.
Yeah, it's been interesting, that one, Dave, isn't it? Because Liverpool have made it clear throughout this window that they would be opportunistic. I suppose that was mainly why they went for Zubimendi. They saw an opportunity there and looked to have it in the bag until ultimately Real Sociedad were able to persuade him to stay where he was. When they talk about looking for opportunities, it involves obviously due diligence in the transfer market, looking at availability, the feasibility of a deal, the value in the deal as well. And clearly when it came to Chiesa, they knew that he was available. They knew that Juve were willing to let him go. We know as well that Barcelona were trying to get a deal done for him but couldn't free up that space on the wage bill. There was also interest, of course, from Saudi Arabia. So, and when you look at the value in the deal, £12.5 million for a 26-year-old of the quality of Chiesa, on the face of it, looks to be a good deal as well. So that's why Liverpool have been able to make the move. You know, this is a player who made the team of the tournament at Euro 2020. He's versatile. He can play left wing, right wing. He can play through the middle as a second striker as well, although we understand that's not necessarily his preferred position. No, in the past he's also been utilised as a wing back as well. So he's got that versatility, but in terms of the attacking threat that he brings, he's got pace, he's direct, he's good in one-on-one situations. When he beats his man as well, he generally creates chances, and he's got the odd goal in him as well. I think it was 10 goals last season, a strike rate of around about 1 in 3 as well. So if he can stay injury-free, yes, there's competition for places here at Liverpool. We know about the quality that they already have with the likes of Mo Salah, Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, for instance, Luis Diaz, of course, as well. But if they can keep Chiesa fit, then he certainly and get him to the kind of levels that we saw back in those Euros in 2020, then he's an obvious massive option that he could become for Liverpool.
Just finally, outgoings. Is there anyone that could leave the club before the deadline day ends?
One potentially probably makes sense as well. And we're looking at Ben Doak. There's been 7 loan offers for him from clubs in the Premier League, from clubs in the Championship as well. And with someone like Chiesa coming in, and I mentioned that quality that Liverpool have in the forward areas, then maybe it makes sense for Ben Doak to get regular first-team football elsewhere and gain greater experience as well. So at the moment, it seems to be a case of weighing up the best option for him. Also, Stefan Bajcetic, and it looks to be that RB Salzburg's still in prime position to take him on loan if Liverpool agree to let him go. We know of the interest from Barcelona as well. He's not had many minutes during pre-season. He was obviously highly thought of by Jurgen Klopp, but has had such an injury-interrupted season last time around as well. But still looking at it, yes, there's competition for places in those midfield areas, but you still sense with around, 6 regular first-teamers in those midfield areas, if Bajcetic were to go, a couple of injuries hit, then Liverpool would be a little bit light. So we'll just see exactly how that one turns out. But if the deal's right for Liverpool, if the deal's right for the player, then he could well be on his way before that deadline as well.
Day off for the players, but no days off for Vinny O'Connor. He's a busy man. Thanks ever so much, Vinny. He works really hard. OK. This feels like a steal, doesn't it? Vinny said it there. Versatile, 26. Good deal for Liverpool. Good bit of recruitment.
100%. Obviously, the biggest factor that everyone's talking about is his injury records in the last few seasons, missing 84 games in the last 3 seasons. But he's still only 26 years old. And when you look at the price that he's coming to Liverpool for and the price that they sold Fabio Carvalho for, it's like, in terms of getting a player that's readily available to impact Liverpool when one of your biggest players in Mohamed Salah is still unsure about his future. And I'm not saying he's going to replace his goal output, but in terms of numbers and in terms of quality, in terms of someone that still has something to prove, someone that will be versatile, like Vinny said, and can score goals, can assist. He was one of only 2 players for Juve last season to get over 10 goals. So I think it's a great signing, and we're going to see if he's going to be able to make an immediate impact, but off the bench even will be great for Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, let's get to Leicester. They've brought in 7 new signings this summer, but fans have been calling for an out-and-out striker. Well, are they any nearer to getting one before deadline day? Let's get to Kirsty Edwards. She's got the latest for us. Hiya, Kirsty. So tell us, are Leicester then any closer to making any signings?
Yeah, well, as you say, lots of talk about a number 9, a new number 9 here. But actually, all along, Steve Cooper has talked about more generally getting attacking options in. Now, I was here last week and we spoke about Oliver Skipp, bringing him in. And he said, I'm happy with the options I've got now in midfield. But the club are hopeful of signing another midfielder. This is a young Moroccan. He's 20 years old. Bilal El Kanous, currently at Genk. The figure being reported, £21 million. So while he's a midfielder, he is an attacking midfielder. He is somebody who perhaps could be utilised in the number 10 role. So he certainly fits the bill in terms of bringing more attacking options in to the club. As I say, they are very hopeful of getting this one over the line. So we'll see what Steve Cooper has to say about that later today. As far as a number 9 goes, well, the club aren't desperate to bring one in. I think they are still looking. If the right player becomes available, they will make a move. But this isn't a certainty that they will bring one in. Obviously, Jamie Vardy is here. We saw what he could do in the opening weekend, didn't we, against Tottenham. So he is their number 9. They've got Patson Daka injured at the moment, but he will be back later in the season. And then, of course, they brought Jordan Ayew in before last weekend. Now, we're more used to seeing him playing on the wing in recent years, but actually in midweek on Tuesday night against Tranmere in the Cup, he did play as a forward, as a striker, and he got a great goal in that game. And he has said earlier this year that actually that number 9 position is his more favoured position. So he is a versatile player. He is somebody who, if needed, Steve Cooper could use in that position. But yeah, in terms of getting a number 9 in, don't hold your breath. Something may happen, but I think they are very hopeful in terms of getting this attacking midfielder in from Genk. He's a very highly rated young player, so watch this space in terms of him.
Thanks ever so much, Kirsty. Okay, I've got a line to bring you from Chelsea. Stuttgart have inquired about a loan deal for Trevor Chalobah. Crystal Palace also remain interested if they lose Mark Gay to Newcastle, which we will come on to shortly. Well, plenty more to come on Transfer Talk. We're going to be live to France. We'll have news on 5 potential deals involving Premier League teams, and we're going to hear from Nuno Espirito Santo. Oh, don't forget this. Scott McTominay given an incredible welcome to Naples. He is about to go for a medical ahead of signing a deal worth over £21 million. Welcome back to Transfer Talk. We're going to cross live now to Paris, where we can speak to French football expert Jonathan Johnson. Jonathan, great to have you on the show. Want to get straight into Manuel Ugarte. A deal done now. Are PSG happy with what they're receiving?
Yeah, I think PSG are. He's a player who has sort of been on the market now since the beginning of the summer. Quite clear that Luis Enrique didn't really have him in his plans in a meaningful way. And I think PSG were very happy when Manchester United first showed interest. Obviously, it's taken quite a long time to get to this point where it's now essentially a done deal. But I think there's a bit of sort of disappointment, really, that Ugarte showed a lot of promise early on in his time with PSG, and it's a perfect advert for what Manchester United fans might be able to expect from him. But just that kind of profile of player didn't quite fit for PSG. So for PSG to essentially make back what they spent on him 1 year later after what had been a fairly underwhelming first year all told, and then potentially be able to profit in the future should Ugarte move on from Manchester United is also quite good business, I think, on PSG's end.
Jonathan, what about Victor Osimhen? We know that PSG have been interested in signing him previously in this window. Is that done from PSG's perspective now? That interest is over?
I think since PSG lost Gonzalo Ramos to injury in the first game of the season, they have been looking at a number of different options in attack. The issue, though, with Osimhen obviously comes the price tag that Napoli would want in order to part with him. And I think in terms of what PSG need, because they're looking for a versatile defender who can potentially play one of the fullback spots as well as in central defence, and possibly a versatile attacker, possibly more of a winger as well. It doesn't quite fit sort of with Osimhen's profile, despite the fact that many feel that PSG really need an out-and-out number 9, prolific source of goals, but that would complicate things when Ramos returns from injury, and you've got Brandon Kolo Muani as well. So although there has been interest in the past from PSG and Osimhen, the feeling is as well to have the sort of money that PSG would need to negotiate for Osimhen, a number of players would have to leave the club on top of Ugarte to United.
Hi Jonathan, my new favourite player to talk about, Maxence Lacroix, on his way from Wolfsburg to Crystal Palace. He's played at international level for France at the lower levels. What can Palace expect from him? Of course, someone who's worked with Glasner before.
Yeah, solid defender who, like you said, knows the coach from their previous time together. So he is a player who had a very strong patch of form a while back with Wolfsburg. Dropped off a little bit, I think, when he was disappointed that he wasn't able to move on from the club the first time. But it seems like this is now the right time for him to make the move. Obviously, we'll pair up in central defence with another defender in Chris Richards, who's familiar with the Bundesliga as well. So I think Glasner's certainly starting to stamp his mark on this Palace side. And Lacroix, a defender who many people feel has played within himself maybe for the last year or so.
Jonathan, let's discuss some other potential deals. Boubakary Samara, is he on his way out of Leicester?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So he's wanted by Lyon and Monaco potentially before the end of the transfer window. Monaco have been doing some interesting transfer dealing so far this summer, gone for a number of very talented young players, but also looked to bring in some more experienced heads as well. And Soumaré, obviously familiar with Ligue 1 from his time at Lille, would be a player who ticks those boxes. Lyon trying to do the best business that they possibly can on a very limited budget, given the constraints that they're under and the need to sell some players between now and the end of the transfer window. So Soumaré could be potentially a cost-effective solution for them there.
Ryan Cherky's been linked with a move to the Premier League. Do you see that happening?
I don't know if I see that happening this window now. There's been a couple of clubs who have had the opportunity to potentially strike a deal with both Lyon and Cherky, and it hasn't quite worked out. Fulham most recently in the Premier League, but also Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga as well. There's now speculation in France that he may well end up signing a contract extension, which obviously would safeguard his potential value. There have been other clubs linked with him as well, but it feels like it's starting to get a bit late in the day now for what has been a fairly problematic transfer this summer to get done to any club in the Premier League.
Jonathan, thanks ever so much. Great to have you on the show. We've got breaking news to bring you. Kieran Trippier has retired from international football. England have released this statement announcing his retirement. Thank you for everything, Trips, they've said. And this is what Trippier has said. I never thought as a young lad from Bury that I would play for my country, let alone achieve 54 caps. It's been one of the biggest honours of my life to represent my country at 4 major tournaments. I want to say a big thank you to Gareth and all the staff that have worked with the England squad for the trust they have placed in me throughout the years. Thank you to all my teammates. We have had some very special moments, reaching 2 Euro finals and a World Cup semi-final, and I am sure in the future this group of players will win a major tournament. I want to wish Lee, the coaching staff and the team all the best for the future. And finally, a big thank you to all the England fans for your incredible support, travelling all over the world to support us and keeping us going in the difficult moments. Kieran Trippier retiring from international football. Let's get live straight now to get more on this with our senior reporter Rob Dorset, who is at St George's Park. Has this come as a surprise, Rob?
Yes, I think it has, Bella. I think you have to say it is a real surprise, because Kieran Trippier is one of the most proud Englishmen you could ever meet. When you heard from his statement there just what it meant to him to play for his country and win an extraordinary 54 caps, and he loved every minute of being a part of that squad and playing for his country. And bear in mind that for a big chunk of those 54 caps, he played out of position. Gareth Southgate had real problems with injuries at left-back in the last 2 tournaments, at the Euros and the World Cup in Qatar, and it was Kieran Trippier he called on to play out of position at left-back. So that speaks volumes, I think, about the character of Kieran Trippier, that he was prepared and able to do a job as ably as he did for England in those 2 tournaments, despite playing out of position. So I think this will have been a difficult decision for him. But look, I know for a fact he was plagued by injuries in Germany in the Euros in the summer. And he's still trying to recover from those fully now and strengthen the body to a large extent. So maybe he's just taken the decision that it's difficult at the age he is now in his 30s to do it for his club and for his country. And of course his club future is a little bit in doubt right now, and a potential move away from Newcastle before tomorrow night's deadline as well. So you wonder how much all of that has played into his thinking. And of course it's the end of an era and the start of a new era in England terms, because Gareth Southgate, who absolutely rated Kieran Trippier incredibly highly, made him a big part of his plans, made him part of the leadership group for England's men's senior team as well, banked on his seniority and his reliability for so much of his time as England manager. That's now gone. It's Lee Carsley. I wonder, and we don't know, and we will ask Lee Carsley when we speak to him at 2 o'clock this afternoon, whether there's been a conversation between the interim England manager, Lee Carsley, and Kieran Trippier about how much he might feature in his plans going forward. No mention of that, of course, in Kieran Trippier's statement, but it is of the nature of these squad announcements that the players often don't know whether they're going to be included in the England squad until maybe an hour or 2 before it's made public. And if that happens at 2 o'clock, you just wonder whether there's been a conversation between Lee Carsley and Kieran Trippier where they've spoken, had heart-to-heart, if you like, and discussed it openly. And maybe that's why Kieran Trippier's statement has come out now. But all of that is for when we speak to Lee Carsley a little bit later on. Right now, I think we have to accentuate just what a stalwart Kieran Trippier has been for England for 4 major tournaments, how often he's played through the pain barrier, how often he's played out of position for his country, because he's loved wearing that England shirt. And I don't think we should shy away from what a big decision this is for a very, very proud Englishman today.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it all there. What a career for England, Rob. How do you think he'll be regarded?
I think he'll be regarded with great affection by his teammates in that England squad. He was always very, very popular. From an FA perspective, he was always very, very good in interviews, knew the right things to say at the right time, even when there were difficult political questions. I go back to Qatar and all those conversations we had about human rights issues out in Qatar, and discussions about how the LGBTQ plus community was treated out there. Those questions were thrown at a lot of players, and Kieran Trippier was more than happy to discuss it and talk openly about it. He had a strength of character and a strength of belief and opinion, which he was never afraid to share with the media when he spoke in front of us. And we could throw anything at him, in truth. So he was very well liked by the media, incredibly popular within that England squad. And I think that will be really interesting when we speak to Lee Carsley a little bit later on, to sort of get a sense of how this squad is going to change going forward. Is the absence of Kieran Trippier now from international football the start of maybe some other senior England players deciding to call time on their international careers? Kyle Walker hasn't played for Manchester City yet this season. No suggestion that he's going to retire from international football, and I don't want to be hasting his retirement, because he's been another brilliant right-back. I would suggest probably England's best right-back ever in an England shirt. But some of those senior players, you just wonder whether they will, now that the management is changing, maybe consider their options and consider their futures. That's why this squad, when we hear it at 2 o'clock, will be really interesting. How much of a mark is Lee Carsley going to make? Now, I understand he will make some big decisions. He's not going to toe the party line. He's not going to follow exactly what Gareth Southgate did in terms of selections. He will put his stamp on it. Maybe he'll select some of the players that he knows very well from his time in charge of England's under-21s, and maybe that will make some of the big England players that we've got used to seeing in an England shirt consider their futures going forward. It's going to be a really interesting afternoon now, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the back of that big news of Kieran Trippier's retirement from international football, what will we hear from Lee Carsley and his plans for this England squad going forward into these Nations League games?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely got more interesting for sure. Just looking at the other side of it, Rob, with Trippier retiring, does that now give others an opportunity here?
It really does, and you've got to remember that Reece James is injured as well, the Chelsea right-back. So at right-back in particular, Lee Carsley has some questions to answer, doesn't he? We know that the full-back positions were a problem for Gareth Southgate at the Euros. So I think Rico Lewis and the form that he's shown for Manchester City at the start of this season means he's got a very good chance of being recalled to the England men's senior squad. And maybe Kieran Trippier's teammate, Tino Livramento, as another right-back option as well. Could he get a call-up? Having performed so well for the under-21s and playing for Newcastle ahead of Trippier at the start of this season. Of course, there's Trent Alexander-Arnold in the mix there as a right-back, and will he, having tried that experiment as central midfield at the Euros, drop back into the natural right-back position that he's been playing for Liverpool? You don't expect Lee Carsley to name 3 right-backs. So it's a complicated scenario that Lee Carsley is trying to juggle here. And it'll be really fascinating to see what he does. The spine of the team, Jordan Pickford, Harry Kane, etc., I think will be still there. There's no Jude Bellingham, of course. He's injured. So what does Carsley do? How much of a stamp is he going to put on this England squad? How much of a statement is he going to make in terms of new call-ups? I think it's going to be a really interesting squad when he names it at 2 o'clock. And we will, of course, bring you both the squad announcement when it happens at 2 o'clock and Lee Carsley's first press conference as that interim England manager straight after that 2 o'clock announcement.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Rob, thanks ever so much. Okay, more on that breaking news to come that Kieran Trippier has retired from international football. Also on the way, we'll have the latest on Raheem Sterling, Ben Chilwell, Sam Johnson and much more. Hi there, just a reminder of the breaking news. Kieran Trippier has retired from international football. This is what he has said. I never thought as a young lad from Bury that I would play for my country, let alone achieve 54 caps. It's been one of the biggest honours of my life to represent my country at 4 major tournaments. I want to say a big thank you to Gareth and all the staff that have worked with the England squad for the trust they have placed in me throughout the years. Thank you to all my teammates. We have had some very special moments, reaching 2 Euro finals and a World Cup semi-final. And I'm sure in the future, this group of players will win a major tournament. He says, I want to wish Lee, the coaching staff and the team all the best for the future. And finally, a big thank you to all the England fans for your incredible support, travelling all over the world to support us and keeping us going in the difficult moments. It's a nice statement, isn't it?
Lovely.
And what do you make of it? Surprised?
Yeah, I'm surprised, but I think what Rob said is it makes sense in terms of, you know, Southgate leaving and maybe his future being uncertain in terms of Newcastle and what he wants for his future. But in terms of his career, he's been such a good player for England. He's the type of player that whether he was left back, centre back, right back, you always knew he was going to give you 7 or 8 out of 10. You would never worry about what he would offer. And also, like he said, in terms of press conferences, he was someone that spoke out for other players as well when they were getting scrutiny. Does that for Newcastle as well. So I think he's been a great player. It's going to be unfortunate to see him go, but at the same time, another opportunity for a younger player to step up.
Yeah, absolutely. I always feel like I'm going to get at least 7 or 8 out of 10 from you guys as well. At least.
That's great.
At least. Right. So Lee Carsley's got some tough decisions to make ahead of his first squad announcement. We're going to bring that to you 2 o'clock. Now, we have picked out some players who are in need of a move to potentially force their way into his thinking. We start with Aaron Ramsdale. He's going to undergo a medical with Southampton today. The club last night agreeing that fee at £18 million, potentially rising to 25 million. That's been agreed with Arsenal. Thoughts on this one?
Well, from Ramsdale's point of view, he's got a difficult time really to remove Jordan Pickford as England's number 1. Pickford's been so good over the last few tournaments for England, and you know he's always been a consistent performer. So from Ramsdale's point of view, he's been a regular member of England's squads, but hasn't quite managed to get ahead of Pickford in that England squad. So you suspect that being a first-team goalkeeper might increase his chances. But you would expect also Lee Carsley to probably stick with the continuity of Jordan Pickford. But you never know. Whoever comes in on a permanent basis as England manager might have a different opinion and might decide to try different goalkeepers ahead of picking a more an established number 1 when it comes around to tournament time.
OK. Let's go to the other end then. Sam Johnston continuing his medical this morning with, it's actually this afternoon, with Wolves as his £10 million switch from Crystal Palace moves closer. Tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, similar to Ramsdale needs to be playing, and at Crystal Palace at the moment, if he was still there, him and Henderson have seemed to rotate depending on who's fit. I think he's probably actually at the moment maybe fighting with Dean Henderson for that third goalkeeper slot in the England squad. So he has to go to Wolves and do well and play. I like him as a goalkeeper. I think he's very, very reliable. I think he does most things you'd want a goalkeeper to do pretty well. Maybe doesn't have a standout attribute, but does everything that you'd want from a modern keeper pretty well. So I'd expect if he goes to Wolves and plays, he'll remain in and amongst it and be in those top 3 goalkeepers, because I believe he is an excellent goalkeeper.
OK. Raheem Sterling, we've spoken about him being surplus to requirements at Chelsea. They're looking for a club for him. How's this going to impact him?
I think it's interesting because Sterling's been one of England's best players in previous tournaments, like Trippier, in terms of goals, assists, contribution. But we know Enzo Maresca said that, he's surplus to requirements at Chelsea, but like Dan said earlier, that doesn't mean that he can't contribute to a top team. He's still only 29 years old. He's still got something to prove, and he always plays like that, like he's got something to prove. When you look at his goals and assists, it speaks for himself as well. So I think he's going to want game time, similar to Ramsdale as well, depending on whether he wants to be at a club that wants to be playing in European football, challenging for titles. But again, that's all down to his wages and whether the club can facilitate that.
And then what about Jadon Sancho? Because he's wanted on loan by Juventus. Chelsea also interested in him as well. Do you think Lee Carsley's going to be thinking about this?
Maybe not right now, but certainly I think there's an opportunity for Sancho in the future, and I think he will consider himself as still being able to get himself into that squad. Maybe in a slightly different situation to Sterling, who has been has already made a really positive impact on the international stage. Sancho, although has played for England, hasn't really had those moments that a Raheem Sterling has had in major tournaments. But given Sancho's age and the possibility that he can improve in performances, I think he will believe that he has an opportunity to get into an England squad in the future. I think the issue that he's got is that position for England, the winger wide forward, England are stacked in that position, and it's going to be hard for him to get ahead of other players that Lee Kazi might have on his radar.
Ivan Toney. Right, OK. Ivan Toney, we've talked about this, so, maybe a bit surprised that he hasn't had more clubs come in for him, but he has had bids from Saudi. He's still at Brentford. There's a chance that he may stay there. How's that going to impact him?
Hard for Ivan Toney, particularly if it ends up being that he goes to Saudi Arabia at the end of this window. We've seen that, particularly with someone like Jordan Henderson who went there. Now, there are other reasons involved as to why he ended up leaving Saudi Arabia as well, but certainly a factor was his position within that England squad. And the fact was that Gareth Southgate couldn't guarantee that he would be picked if he was playing in the Saudi League. So Ivan Toney will face a similar situation. And actually, he didn't play too many minutes at the recent tournament this summer, but actually his impact was significant. And I think, a lot of England fans would have looked at that and gone, he can do different roles. He can come on and be, plan B in quotations, but also, he's a fantastic footballer in himself.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, and then we've got to come on to Ben Chilwell. Now, we know that he's not in the plans for Chelsea. Where could he go? There's only a day to go now. Where do you think he'll move to?
He's another one that probably would have been upset at not being in the Euro squad, especially with the injuries that was there. Trippier had to play out there even though he's right-footed. And he's probably looking at this Trippier news and not happy, but almost seeing it as an opportunity for him to get back into the England fold. But again, because he's surplus to requirements and it's been said in the public eye, I think for him, just playing week in, week out, because he's been another player that's been plagued with injuries, and it's not that he hasn't got the ability, it's just it doesn't suit what Enzo's trying to do in terms of the inverted fullback and what he's doing moving forward. So again, just game time and consistently showing that he can be at that level that we first saw of him when he did join Chelsea.
OK, we have got plenty more to discuss. Wolves sold Max Kilman and Pedro Neto in this window for nearly 100 million. But are they about to see some new arrivals? We've got the latest on all of their business after the break. Hi, welcome back to Transfer Talk. If you're just joining us, firstly, where have you been? And secondly, Kieran Trippier's retired from international football. Lee Carsley, the interim England manager, will be speaking to the media at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We're going to bring you that on Sky Sports News. But we'll get back to transfers now. Nottingham Forest head coach Nuno Espirito Santo is confident of signings before tomorrow night's deadline. Forest remain in the market for a striker after deals for Eddie Nketiah and Santiago Jimenez didn't progress.
We have 36 hours not to go. I think the club is working to try and bring solutions and options that can make us strong. This is to have a competitive squad, players, different profiles. It's all about the profile of the player, really. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially in these last hours. Not easy, and it's also not easy because we already have talent and quality in the squad, so we have to nail down really the player that's going to come. But I believe that we as a club, we are working, and I expect to bring some players. It's about taking time which you don't have, but at the same time not make mistakes because a mistake.
OK, some news just into us. Billy Gilmour looks likely to stay at Brighton this transfer window. Napoli have been trying to do a deal, but the injury to teammate Matt O'Reilly, he needs surgery, we know that, has complicated matters. We'll keep you across this one. Now, back to Wolves. They have agreed a £21.8 million deal to sign Andre from Fluminense. Now, the agreement is broken up into an initial £19.3 million payment plus a further £2.5 million in bonuses. He's expected to fly to the UK later today for a medical tomorrow. He's keen to come to the Premier League. We know that. What could he bring?
I think he brings a lot. I think our South American expert Tim Vickery has waxed lyrical about Andre for a couple. I do love Tim, and Tim loves Andre, so he must be a good player, mustn't he? I think Wolves need some reinforcements. I think he'd be a boost to their squad. If you actually watch him play, he's played nearly 200 games in Brazil now, got 5 caps for his country as well. It's quite similar to Bruno Guimaraes in that he's quite likes the nitty-gritty, can get involved, win the ball back, but he's a very good passer of the ball as well. So I think he'll offer Wolves something different in that central midfield area, and just gets around the pitch really, really well, and good signing for Wolves. I think the fans of Wolves, they kind of want something to get behind at the moment. It's been a difficult summer for them, losing so many players again.
He's got Tim's stamp of approval, so, I mean, there we go. OK, we've got time for some other transfer stories to discuss before we go. Real Betis are stepping up their interest in signing Tottenham's Giovanni Lo Celso. He's the prime target that had interest in him all summer. Tottenham hoping to let him and Sergio Reguilon leave this week.
I think it makes sense for Lo Celso. He's never really found his feet at Tottenham. He's had periods under different managers where, he looks like the prospect that they originally signed. But I think Real Betis was a good time for him. It was interesting because I think at the time people were expecting him to stay because of how well he done there. But then he went to Spurs and he never really kicked on. So him going back there and them losing Fekir, I think he's linked with a move away. I think it makes sense for him and Spurs.
Talks are continuing between Ipswich Town and Chelsea as well. This is over the striker Armando Broja. The deal broke down last week. This was after an issue with Broja's medical. Ipswich have been so busy in this window already, haven't they? Is it a case of they've already done enough to stay up, or do you think they still need a Broja?
Yeah, I mean, the original deal for Broja was going to be a loan with an obligation if Ipswich stayed up. And I think the hope when you do a deal like that is that Broja would maybe get 8 to 10 goals, and that would be then enough for you to stay in the Premier League. I think Ipswich have already recruited really well in those striking positions in Liam Delap and Sami Smodic. So for this Broja deal to go through, I feel like it's almost more important for him now as a player, coming back from that injury at Chelsea and then not featuring. I think now it's time for him to go out and get some games and really show Premier League sides what he can do.
Now, Bilal El Khanous, we heard Kirsty speaking about him earlier, has had a medical with Leicester yesterday. The club have agreed a deal at just over £19 million to sign the attacking midfielder from Genk. Leicester also looking for a new number 9. They've been after forward players but haven't been able to get them over a line. So this could be a crucial day for Steve Cooper, no?
Yeah, Cooper will want a striker. Leicester are desperate for a number 9. Vardy's playing through the pain barrier at the moment. Daka's out injured. I think getting players around a striker to facilitate is a good thing as well. There's a lot of talent in the Belgian league, and Leicester are obviously looking there. But you always worry as a fan if your team hasn't signed something that you see as being a key signing, and you're going into the last 24 hours. You think, I don't want a panic signing, but actually, I really would like us to get a striker in. So I think Leicester will get someone in before the end of tomorrow. So of course, that'll be something that we're probably talking about tomorrow.
And just to mention, I mean, Genk get some incredible fees for their players, varying successes. They've just sold their keeper to Chelsea, Penders, who's obviously not going to be at Chelsea this year, but Sander Berge, Leandro Trossard, Paul Onuachu, maybe not the success that they hoped at Southampton, but big fees for these players and a history of some good ones working out.
Yeah, you're going to be covering EFL tomorrow as well, aren't you? So that should be a good one.
Yeah, can't wait for it. There's going to be loads of business done. Burnley need players, Leeds, Coventry, plenty of sides looking to do deals tomorrow.
OK, we're looking forward to it. We've had a great time. Thank you for joining us. Full roundup of all the day's news, as usual, on the Transfer Show. You've got 2 instalments, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock tonight. And we are gearing up for the grand finale tomorrow on Deadline Day. Our coverage starts at 7 a.m. on Sky Sports News. But coming up, we have got plenty more coming up from St George's Park. Kieran Trippier has retired from international football.